Immigration reform, of course, has been a policy priority for the Obama administration, and a great deal of progressive groups are in favor also of reforming our immigration system. But it's not just a Democratic priority. Republicans are also planning to unveil their new framework for immigration reform very, very soon, with an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States at this moment. There's something that does need to be done. When asked, of course, the American people strongly support immigration reform, specifically a pathway to citizenship. Now that's very important. So how much do people support a pathway to citizenship? Well, surprisingly, according to a recent Fox News poll, so we're not exactly going into progressive territory here. This is a very conservative poll. 68% of Americans polled in this survey believe that there should be a pathway to citizenship in any sort of immigration reform bill. 13% support a guest worker program for undocumented immigrants. And that's, right now, that seems to be the position of the Republican Party. If they're to accept any sort of immigration proposal, it has to be with guest workers, mainly so they can prevent these people from voting because they assume that they would vote for Democrats. Now, another conservative group that is for immigration reform is the group headed by Grover and created by Grover Norquist, of all people, and that's Americans for Tax Reform. Now, they did their own poll and found that 85% of Republicans either strongly support or somewhat support the requirement that illegal immigrants in the U.S. register for legal status, pay fines, learn English, pay taxes, wait in the back of the line to apply for citizenship until everyone who is currently in line to legally enter the U.S. gets in. Basically, giving them a pathway to citizenship. Now, so because of this strong bipartisan support, it's no wonder that Republicans are actually now attempting to work something out when it comes to this new framework. So what I want to ask you guys, and I'm going to go to the panel here, is what you think this framework might look like. I'm going to start with you, Jordan.
That's an excellent question. So we have we've got, this is kind of another example of, the GOP, or just the conversation in general moving to the right, because for all W's faults, one thing he was in favor of, at least briefly, was a path to citizenship that was probably a little bit more progressive than what President Obama has laid out. And obviously that did not go well with a lot of his base, and so we've seen the shift to the right that we're at now. I can't imagine, like, why do you need to be right of what President Obama has proposed? Quite frankly, I'm all for a lot of these restrictions, because the fact of the matter is, these guys, like these undocumented aliens, have broken the law to get here, and so the idea of them having to kind of to work and to get put at the back of the line, stuff like that, that may seem kind of cold, but I mean, to me that's part of function of government. Like, government's not a charity; it's there to create a structure for society to function in. And obviously, you want the people living and working in your country to be taxable and generating revenue. So it makes sense that you put some of these restrictions on there. But the point is, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a way for them to become citizens, which is they came here because they believe in America. They came here because they believe this is a better place. This is the land of opportunity. That we're doing something right. And if they want to work for it and earn it, they're paying their dues. The fact that they, initially came here under less than reputable means that doesn't bother me. Especially because I know, like, a friend of mine did some mission work. He was my college roommate in my last couple of years of college. He did some mission work down in Peru. Met a girl down there, fell in love with her. They got married, and she's not even from a country that we have a problem with a lot of illegal immigration, but it was so hard for her to be able to come here legally. Like, you have to have a lawyer to do it, was kind of what they found out. Like, if you don't have a lawyer, it is downright impossible to get here to do it. And most of these people who are coming here for a better life can't afford a lawyer. Thankfully, my friend and his now wife had the means, to do that. But even with the lawyer, the process took forever. So that's like that whole argument about, not giving them a path to be legal. It's not rooted in reality, because if you're going to say, well, they need to come here legally from the get-go or not come here at all, then nobody's going to come here, because it's darn near impossible to come here legally, at least from certain places.
All right, Sean, what do you think? I'm wondering what you think this framework will look like, or if you want to go on to any other kind of input that you have, feel free.
Well, I mean, the framework that they're going to put out there is going to be really like draconian from what we see, like from what we've seen so far. Like we've heard about the 15-year path that it will take to become a citizen. We've heard Marco Rubio say it will be easier to go back to Mexico, and I'm using Mexico because that's where most of the illegal immigrants come from. I'm not a racialist, but it will be easier to go back to your home country and reapply for citizenship than it would be to become a citizen through this process. But to me, what the process should be, and if I was a Republican senator or somebody in the Republican circles, what I would do is I would promote the fast tracking of the people that are in the legal system first, right? Because those people are getting screwed over, and like I have friends, and I don't want to go off in too many anecdotes, but I have two friends that came here from Korea when they were around 7 years old, and they're 23 now and 24. One of them became a citizen 2 years ago, and the other one still hasn't gotten his citizenship yet. So like our process is ridiculous for legal immigrants. If I was the Republican Party, I would fix that process, and then I would give them, the illegal immigrants, some kind of legal status temporarily, and then put them through the fixed process. And I think that's the one part that the Republicans are going to try to do, is they're going to try and give you like a guest worker program or something like that, where you'll have some legal status, but you won't be able to vote or anything. But I think you give the undocumented workers a legal status, you fix the immigration system for the people who came here legally, and then you put the undocumented workers through that fixed system. Like, that's my opinion of what the best way to go about it. And I think that's one of the fairer ways to go about it.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to throw one more thing in here, and that's, of course, one of the things, that major components that I see of a Republican framework is, of course, increasing border security. That, I think, is going to be one of their main focuses, putting more cameras, more customs, more agents on the border with Mexico, as well as probably wanting to build a really large, expensive fence. And that's just one of the things that I think you guys didn't really touch on, and I wanted to add to this. But my next question is, I want to ask you guys is what do you think of the chances are that something like this will actually get through the Republican House or the Congress? And go ahead, Jordan.
I think the chances are probably a lot better than people think they are, because this is something that has a lot of support, and also this goes to it's something I think Republicans are starting to realize is in the interest of their party. After they started to make gains under Bush, and he had some support in the early 2000s. But then they've completely lost that. They've derailed, and they've moved to the right. I think they're starting to realize, after 2012, despite propping up a lot of guys like Marco Rubio, trying to really flex their Latino credentials, whatever you want to call it, they're starting to realize they've got to do this. And I think this is actually a point in their favor. Depending on what you want to value most, because it shows that a lot of the anti-immigration policies, a lot of what seems like bigotry and stuff from Republicans, isn't necessarily, at least for the politicians, because they don't like these people. It's because everything they do is so calculated about getting votes, and they were pandering to their base, who they knew their base is older white people, and they were doing what they could to energize the base. And so, and now they've realized, well, hey, that we've hit a point of diminishing returns. That trade-off isn't good enough. So now let's do something to bring in this new voting demographic. And so you could say, like, then that's crappy, that they were encouraging that kind of behavior. But at the same time, I think it shows that, a lot of these Republicans they're not racist. They're just strategists, and they realized the strategy wasn't paying off. So now it's time, to bring in some fresh blood.
Now it's time to change the strategy. Sean, I want to get your thoughts on this.
There's the border security thing is to me a joke. Like I don't want to have a militarized border, but one of the reasons that they need border security is because in the bills in the Rubio plan and in one of the Democratic plans that I don't remember the name, they don't expand the guest worker visa enough. Like I'm actually gonna like unsurprisingly agree with Rand Paul on something. And his plan expands the guest worker visa program, because if you make it easier for somebody to come here and be a guest worker, then they probably won't come here illegally to work. Like the problem with our immigration system is that it takes too long, it's too complicated. If you're in certain countries, you could spend like 99 years on a wait list or like 15 years or 20 years just waiting to come here. And that doesn't make any kind of sense at all. Like I'm not in favor of the militarizing the border. I'm not in favor of the stupid fence. Like I've seen the fence, and I see that there's holes in it. There's ladders over it. There's holes under it. Like if people are gonna get in, like you're not gonna be able to build an efficient fence, even if you do a Herman Cain and you electrify it on both sides. You're not gonna be able to build a fence that's gonna keep them out. So I'm actually in favor, in general, of giving the immigrants that are here already, because you're not going to deport them all, some kind of legal status between illegal and citizen until you can get them into a process that could get them to be a citizen. But you really should expand the guest worker program, because what you're going to have is you're going to have more immigrants coming here illegally, and we're going to have this problem again in like 15, 20 years.
Do I think there is a good chance that something like this will get passed? I think that in time the GOP is going to see that it's actually the good thing to do, strategic-wise, strategery, as Bush would call it. Simply because, do you know that the last election in 2012, 70% of Latinos voted for President Obama? Why? Because the current stance on immigration policies from the GOP is so bad. You could see, though, that the GOP, and maybe I'm stereotyping a little bit, but people, a lot of Latinos are actually very religious and conservative, and so you could really kind of scoop up that part of the base if the GOP wasn't alienating them so much with their extreme anti-immigration positions.
Oh, can I just jump in right quick? I know Jordan's supposed to go, but I didn't answer that question if I think it's going to pass. I think if it is going to pass, it will pass after primary season for the Republicans, because you don't want to be the guy that voted for it before and then when you have a primary challenger. So maybe after primaries, most likely after this midterm election.
That is an excellent point.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the rare issues where money kind of doesn't drive the process, because as you said, business owners who contribute to Republicans are in favor of more open borders, but Republicans are very anti-immigrant. And unions who are against undocumented workers contribute more to Democrats, but the Democrats are in favor of a pathway to citizenship for some reason. So this is one of the issues where, like, the fear of where these people are going to vote, or in the Democratic case, the idea that they will get a bunch of new voters, actually drives the issue more than money.
And then, of course, makes a lot of sense.
All right,
unique in our society.
So let me jump in with my answer and a counterpoint to Sean. There's some truth to what you're saying. However, and this is something I wanted to bring up earlier. I didn't know if you were going to ask about it, but I'll go ahead and bring it up now. Kind of one of the big guys that's kind of gumming up the works here for the right is Jeff Sessions of Alabama. And the reason why he's doing that is because of the money from his donors. Alabama and Florida benefit a lot from our current immigration policy, because there's a lot of the agriculture business there benefits from paying undocumented workers well below federal minimum wages, which are different for agriculture anyway. They're actually a little bit lower.
Let me add to that real quick. In California specifically, up to 80% of all seasonal harvesting is done by undocumented immigrants through contractors. Now that's very important because what they really like to do is they like to do plausible deniability, and they will hire through contractors, through private contractors, that only do like a cursory look through possible through paperwork, through forged paperwork. If you forge a driver's license or something like that as an undocumented immigrant, they'll take a quick look at it and then be like, okay, you're good to work.
Yeah, no, totally, and that's citrus crops, tropical agricultural states, for whatever reason, I don't know why, tend to have more of a problem with that. It's not such a big issue in places like Arkansas as it is places like Florida. Because here in Arkansas, we pay all of our workers very, very well. To answer your question, to kind of not derail the show any more than I already have, and I really, really want to watch Sean's face when I say this. What I would like to see in this immigration bill, to kind of contradict everything I said about kind of making them pay their dues, is I would love to see a lot of like education opportunities and incentives and stuff like that, and even would be okay with it specifically targeting immigrants or even people who are part of this pathway to legalization process. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of data that shows, there's a lot of studies that have shown that it's not just a principle. Like there's the data backs it up. I wish I would have prepared for this a little better so I could quote some of these studies. But the immigrants, they come in like with this incredible work ethic. They're motivated. They drive a lot of innovation and a lot of startups, which are what you hear everybody talking about us not having right now. That's why the recovery is coming along so slowly. Yada yada yada. And the other thing that people will say, is one of the kind of the going all the way back, to the Ellis Island days. It's that these guys come in and they're troublemakers. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of ignorance. Whatever you want to say in these immigrant communities. Well, then, so the answer to that is to provide these guys with the education, with the tools to become contributors, to take that work ethic and that want to. I mean, they're willing to risk their lives to cross a border illegally. They spend tons of money, to get transported by the coyotes up here. Like there's so much want to there. Equip those people. That's what the golden age of American prosperity was built on. Is we had a generation of immigrants come in the early 1900s, and then their kids, they and their kids built this nation into the powerhouse that it is today. Let's do that again. Let's equip these people. And I'm okay if their skin color is not the same as mine. Like, that's part of what being an American means.